Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, welcome. We'll just take a few moments to have everyone come in and then we'll get started. Okay. So, hello and welcome to the Made in New York Animation Project Incentivized Industry Access event. My name is Keisha Francis, and I'm a creative arts therapist at TAP.
Hi again, everybody. I'm Brandon Paracon, an animator here at TAP, and I will be co-facilitating today's industry access event alongside Keisha.
Thank you, Brandon. I'm so excited to meet today's guest speaker, but before we do, let's review some Zoom webinar information. So this group will operate in webinar format. Attendees will not be able to turn on their video or microphone during the webinar events. You were counted in attendance as soon as you logged in. You do not need to follow up with us regarding attendance. If you lose connections, just please try to rejoin the webinar as soon as possible. You will still receive your incentive even if you get disconnected from the webinar.
Thanks, Keisha. Let's begin.
Okay, so as we do in every industry access event, let's review our goals for the day. So for today's goals, we'll start with our opening ritual, then we'll head on to the TAP Creed. Then we have our guest speakers, Ariba Khan and Michael Launder from Nickelodeon. Then we'll follow up with some questions and answers, and then we'll just close with our closing ritual.
Looks like a great group. What's the opening ritual for today?
Okay, so I just want us to just take the next few minutes to stretch and loosen up any tension we may feel in our body. We're towards the end of the week, so let's just let all that tension out. So you just move to your comfort level, just try to stretch, get it out. Maybe you want to shake it off, stretch your fingers. If you want to stand, you can also stand. Just remember to also take deep breaths in and out. One more in and out. And one last, just shake it off. All right, so thank you for participating. Um, so next we will be going over our TAP Creed. Um, so do you want to start off, Brandon, or?
Sure, I can take number one.
Oh, thank you.
So number one, we show respect. We are a team of individuals from different backgrounds and experiences with a shared interest in learning. We live up to the same expectations as we would in person. We mute ourselves when we are not speaking in order for all voices to be clearly heard.
Thank you. Two, we take care of our technology. We utilize our technology with care and professionalism in order to support the learning experiences of all who attend.
Number three, we focus. We have a lot to learn. All our attention is focused on the group. We do our best to limit distractions around us if possible. Sorry, that's being covered. And we wear headphones if possible.
Number four, we participate. We are engaged in the group. We abide by the creed and asking questions and sharing our creative work.
Number five, we own the content. This is our group. This is our opportunity to learn more about the animation industry and express ourselves creatively.
And last but not least, number six, we attend group. Our voices and ideas are valued. We attend each group and we are registered for. We log into the group on time and stay until the end. Our Zoom names match our registration names. Okay, and now we are excited to welcome today's guest speakers from Nickelodeon, Ariba Khan and Michael Launder. Welcome.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much.
Hello, nice to meet everyone.
Hi. Cool. So we have a PowerPoint to share too. And so I will go and pick that up. And it starts with an amazing introduction from Ariba. Take it away.
You. My name is Ariba Khan, and I am the lead character technical director at Nickelodeon on Big Nate, as you see here. Let's see, I studied at Chapman University, where my focuses were in game programming and animation. And I have worked on a lot of different projects. So I first started out working in visual effects, where I worked on a bunch of like Marvel films, Guardians of the Galaxy, Spider-Man, and jumped around on a bunch of different things doing technical direction work, meaning I wrote tools. And that includes programming and knowing the software. And then eventually it led me on to going more into rigging, which is, we'll get more into what rigging is later, but that's what led me to be a character TD at Nickelodeon now. And I'll give it over to you, Michael.
Amazing, as always, Ariba. Let's see. And then, okay, so here I am. I am Michael Launder. My pronouns are he, him. And I am a CG Superman, AKA a supervisor at Nickelodeon Animation Studios. I just hit my 6th year at Nickelodeon. And so that was really sweet. I got an awesome like little email from my friends and from people that I've been working with for a long time saying congratulations, because that's in the entertainment industry, 6 years at one place is kind of rare. I went to university in Colorado, Denver, where I'm from, and I got a bachelor's of fine arts in computer graphics, but with an emphasis in making computer animation. And then just because I really enjoyed it, I got a minor in art history as well. Like Ariba, my first experiences out of school were also working on films, specifically for Marvel and Lionsgate. And we actually she and I figured out we worked on the same movies, but for 2 different companies, which is really fun. So that's one of our like, oh, we're together in the craziness.
It's like we're related. You're like
exactly,
a distant cousin.
Exactly. It's really funny. So yeah, we were really that was like one of our connection points. And Ariba and I, we do a lot of these talks, and we talk with students because it's something that we're really passionate about. And we've actually never met in person. We're still just Zoom buddies. So it's really fun. I hope I get to see her at the studio one day soon.
Hopefully soon.
Yeah, and so here are a very long list of some of the projects that we've worked on, and definitely some of the favorite ones. At Nickelodeon, I've been really fortunate enough to be on about probably like 8 or 10 projects now in those 6 years. And actually, my favorite one, believe it or not, is Butterbean's Cafe, which is about these fairies that run a cafe and they have wings made out of sugar cookies. And I know it's like, here I am, a big 30-year-old bearded man, and like that's my favorite thing I've worked on. But what's one of your favorite things, Ariba?
Well, it's hard because I have 2 favorites. Of course, Big Nate is like one of my top ones because it's one of the first projects where I got to be in more of a leadership position, and that honestly meant everything to me. And like, it's been really fun working at Nickelodeon. But a tie with that would have to be Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, just because the project, like team, everyone was really fun to be around. It was like the golden team. And I think kind of like you guys will notice with like certain group projects and stuff, your group makes it, either you have a bad group or you have a really nice group. So I really, really liked the team on the project. It was fun and everyone just enjoyed their time. And I did want to like point out, so a lot of these are like different types of productions, but I wanted to point out The March, which I'll get more into it later, but that is actually a VR experience. So that's kind of included in the realm of like CG and like what can be done within CG.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I mean, as you can see, guys, it's a really long list of lots of things. And we have a really fun, wide variety of experience. And so hopefully you have really awesome questions and we can answer them for you. I don't know about Ariba, but I love doing the Q&A. That's like one of my favorite parts. So hopefully we can spend a little more time doing that later. So we both are really lucky. We both work on CG 3D cartoons at Nickelodeon, and that starts with these three categories, right? And every cartoon uses these three, but specifically these are the CG ones, right? So there's people that are in charge of pre-production, and that takes you all the way from story to layout, and then it goes into production, which is the actual creation of the cartoon, and then the post-production, which is the finishing of the cartoon. And Ariba, you said you've been more in rigging, but technical direction.
Yeah,
So
writing tools and rigging. So it's actually two jobs, but I have a passion for both, which is why I tend to just do both.
Sorry, I lost my mouse there for a second. I couldn't unmute. I love that. It's like I can make anything on a computer, but sometimes I can't find my mouse. Yes, and so as a CG supervisor, so something that's a little bit unique about my job is this the center column, this whole production column. I supervise that entire department. So I have leads on my team, supervisors for each one of these departments within that. And I help them organize and work and get through their productions to hit schedules, to make really good art and content. And it's a lot of fun. And so, yeah, both Ariba and I are now at that point where we're managers. We're still artists in our free time, but for the most part in our jobs, we're actually managing the other really talented people at Nickelodeon. So that one's been a learning experience, to say the least. So yeah, we want to go a little bit more in depth, right? And what better way to do that with Nickelodeon's one of our most famous characters, SpongeBob SquarePants, and then Lincoln Loud from Loud House as well. So pre-production is is the planning stage, and that's what I really want to emphasize, is that cartoons take a lot of work and there's a lot of people and everything has to be planned. We don't get anything for free. And I want to just emphasize that, is everything has to be made, and it's discussed almost ad nauseum at some points of, well, why does SpongeBob's nose have to be this big? How many holes does he have on his face? How many ridges does he have on his body? We have to make those rules so that the character isn't something that you see on a screen and think, oh, well, that's a fun character, like that they drew and they made. Like, you want to feel that like that's a real character with real emotions and memories and preferences.
Yeah, everything you see is always intentional. And it's just like everything is planned out, as Michael said. And that kind of leads more, like, it goes from writing to concept art, where they hire a concept artist or a visual developer, and they kind of test out, like, should the character look like this, should it look like this, and they go through like a million designs. And eventually, when a design is decided and writing is complete, it moves on to storyboarding, which Michael put in a lovely image from Loud House storyboarding. And that's where it can get really fun, because a storyboard artist draws out each scene and how the character reacts, like their facial expressions. And basically, it's just like, it's a thumbnail version of what's going to be the final product before we go in and we make it all in CG. It's like a fast way to preview what everything's going to look like, which is awesome. And it truly helps. Like, storyboarding, I feel like, to me, is very, like, I love watching storyboard reviews. They're so fun. And just like seeing everyone go back and forth of like, oh, maybe we should do this tweak, or maybe they should do this instead. It's a really interesting point of the process to me.
Yeah, and don't play the storyboard artist in Pictionary. They're super good, and I never win. But yeah, these, they love to do art classes even at the studio. I think that's one of my favorite things, is we'll do like life drawing together, and you can go and you can meet these people that are professional artists and drawers. And because I'm on the CG side, I can draw, but I'm not like great at it compared to them. So you pick up little tips and tricks, you know, and you learn. And the whole best part about being at the studio is that you learn from each other. And pre-production is one of the best spots to do that because it's really loose, right? You're constantly throwing out new ideas and solving problems and finding solutions, and it's really organic. And I think that's what a lot of people fall in love with when they're making cartoons or comics or webtoons or whatever. You know, this is the part when you get to be the most creative. And now we can go on to the next one, which is production. So this is, again, this is where I start to take over, right? So many of our incredible designers and board artists will make those designs for the characters, and they'll design the props for the sets. They'll design, you know, the props that the characters interact with. And then it's up to a CG or a 3D artist to make those things, right? Those, again, nothing's for free. Everything has to be made and tracked and then looked at by a supervisor and then approved. And so that's all done in the process called modeling, which is almost like sculpting with clay, you know, but you use these little four-sided faces called polygons. And those polygons all come together to create a mesh, which then can be moved around with rigging. And Ariba is an awesome rigging artist and has been for a long time. So I'm going to let her explain it a little bit better than I can.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, so once the modeling stage is complete and, you know, they have the stiff T pose, I'm sure you guys have seen like broken games or something where the character pops to a T pose and you're like, what's happening? But the T pose is the default position in a model where we can go ahead and take it into rigging. And rigging is putting bones in the body and making it to a point where we can move the body around, because animators can't animate a model that's just in T pose like this. They have no way to do it. And so that's when a rigging artist comes in and they assign weights to the bones, you know, making sure the fingers can bend like this. I always kind of relate rigging to puppeteering. So the people that set up the strings to the puppet and making it enable to, you know, like you lift a string and the puppet goes in, the arm goes in the air. Because that's a really good way to depict it, because you really need to understand how a character moves. And it needs like thorough knowledge of anatomy. It's just a lot of things can come into play. And a lot of it also is you working with the animator. Because at the rigging stage is where you determine how wide their facial expressions can go. You know, you like their mouth needs to take over their face completely, which is actually kind of common on Big Nate. That is something you would enable at the rigging stage, because the animator can't just do that without a rigging artist setting it up for them. But the animator, so after that, they pass it on to animation. And that's where animators can really use their skills and talent to time things, to really push poses and like get like lovely different like animations. Like I'm sure you guys have seen like wonderful things like Frozen and Tangled, where like they really push the acting and everything into scenes, and it really connects with the audience. And that's something animation, like I also have high respect for animation, because I'm just like, wow, like I can rig it, but then I see them animate it, I'm like, that's so cool, you can do that with the rig. And it's always been just really, really cool to see things come to life once it's animated.
Yeah, and I think one thing that's I really enjoy about CG is there is a technical component and then a creative component, right? And so animation is really about acting, and it's about, you know, animators are just actors, and then their characters emulate their actions on the screen. But you know, like I said a little bit earlier when I was talking about the pre-production and the design, we don't want you to look at our characters and think, oh wow, that's a cool moving 3D model or a cool moving drawing on the screen. We want you to think, oh, that's Nate, that's Tommy Pickles, right? Like there's a personality and rules behind them, and the animators are really important in making sure that those rules are upheld and used. One of my favorite quotes was from a really famous animator named Glenn Keane, and he said, don't animate what the character's doing, animate what the character is feeling. And I think that's something that a lot of us um, feel and inherently know is, we see people so much every day, our family, our friends, and you can read their body language in such a way that you can almost know what they're feeling without them telling you or without them doing anything, right? You can understand that feeling. We're very empathetic creatures, humans. And so it's the animator's job to make you feel empathy, to make you relate to the characters on screen. And they do such a good job because, like Ariba said, it's like, they're really, really talented. So after you get into the performances, the animation, then you can't have these weird gray blobs running around on your screen. You want to make them look pretty, and for me, that's one of the most exciting parts, and that's when we start to get back into the artistic side of digital animation, and that comes with texturing. Texturing can very simply be summarized as the painting of a surface, so that if you have an object on your scene that looks like skin, if you have an object in your scene that looks like metal, that those are very obvious, that the audience can see that and they don't wonder, oh, why does that metal look like plastic, or something. So texturing artists are very good at observing the world, and they take pictures and references of everything. And the computer softwares, especially in the last couple of years, have excelled at calculating the attributes of materials. And I think one of the things that Ariba and I love the most is something called subsurface scattering. So the computer can even calculate how light comes in and hits the blood inside your skin, and then it bounces back out, and it like creates this cool glow. You'll see it a lot in TV shows where you can see the little glow on people's ears. The computers can do that now, and it's really cool, and it gives just that extra level of like believability.
Yeah, it's really cool to see light coming through the ears, and like you can kind of see a little bit of the vein, not too much because that'd be a little weird, but just like a little bit. And texturing is really cool just because it really tells, you can, like with animation, you can tell a story with how the characters act, but with texturing, you tell a story with how things are painted. So let's say you have, I don't know, like a box, and like, is this an old vintage box or just like a brand new futuristic box? And you can tell a whole story with just how you paint it. And that's always been really interesting to me. Just seeing how you can tell a story, like in Wall-E, for example, where like humans aren't really on Earth anymore, and like it's only this one robot that's left behind, but he's in these like piles of trash that look very, very old. They're not new trash, it's just trash that's been sitting there for years and years. And it's really cool to see people put so much thought into things like that. It also, so after you texture it, one thing that's also important is how you light it. Because they kind of go hand in hand. Because if the light is very bright, then the texture can get blown out and you don't see the texture. Or if it's too dim, you might see just a little bit, just enough. And a really good example of good use of like dim lighting on textures is Jurassic Park. Yeah, they did use animatronics for some shots, but not all shots were done using animatronics, and some of them were CG. And we couldn't tell the difference because it was a perfect combination of low light and really good texturing. So we didn't, yeah, no one noticed, and we're just like, yeah, that's either an animatronic or just a real dinosaur, which is really, really fun.
I would die if I saw a real dinosaur, guys. I would love it. I would be like, oh my God, it's a Tyrannosaurus Rex. But yeah, no, we're all movie geeks and we like to talk about movies in our day to day. So any day with a Jurassic Park reference is a good day. I love that. Let's see. And then after that, we go into something called post-production. And this has a couple different parts that I want to kind of zoom through, but these are also super important. The final compositing is when you take all of the CG elements and you put them together. And a really, really good example of that is like up here in the GIF from Star Wars. You know, that's not a real spaceship. Believe it or not, it's a digital one. But you have to make it look like it's real, right? It has to have shadows and highlights, and it has to sit in the footage that was filmed by the director and the director of photography. And it has to, it can't look bad. And I think we all know when CG looks bad. There's things that people will say, oh man, the CG was really bad in that movie or that game. And so post-production is really important because it's kind of the invisible art, right? If you see it, that's bad. If you don't see it, then they did a really good job. And so this is where I started. And so I'm very appreciative of things like compositing. And then all of that footage, when it's done, goes off to an editor, and the editor puts it all together into the movie or the TV show that you see in the theaters, and on Netflix or wherever you're watching cable. And I really love this part because this is when it all comes together. This is when everyone sees what the final image is going to look like. And on every project I've ever worked on, the first time that you see it all finally composited and edited is a huge morale boost for the team. Our team members always get really excited and they want to share it, but then we're like, oh no, we've all signed non-disclosure agreements, we can't share it. But we can all geek out inside Nickelodeon together. So yeah, there's another still from Big Nate with all of our really cute characters. And then one of our stills from Star Trek Prodigy, one of our more recent shows. But wow, it's just a sci-fi eye candy. It's so pretty. I really, really love Star Trek. Nickelodeon's really proud of that show. And I forgot about sound, right? Sound is another thing that comes in post-production. And there are people who just sit in sound booths and they like knock on doors and wood, and they make up the sounds that you hear in the movies, and it's really fun. So if you're ever looking for just like a fun YouTube rabbit hole, just look up Skywalker sound or Foley artists and you'll see them do. It's really fun to watch.
I love the colors from Star Trek. Oh wait, Michael, did you freeze? Oh, okay, never mind.
Oh, am I okay?
It was just lag.
Okay?
No, it's lag on my part. I did want to add that CG may not be in every shot of like any movie, but compositing and editing is needed for everything. So like even just like the wires, the harnesses on characters, well, I don't know, they're floating around for some reason. The wires and stuff would be taken out in compositing. And so this is a job that's like needed in live action and not just CG, which I think is pretty cool. So you get to work on a larger variety of things if you're a compositing artist.
Yeah, I remember I worked on a show that was set in a baseball stadium. And when they filmed it, the baseball stadium was empty and we had to put people in the stands and in the crowd. And so I remember like having a moment of like, oh my gosh, is every crowd I've ever seen in a movie a lie? And I had to like I had like an existential crisis at that moment. I was like, is every crowd ever been made? I don't know. But yeah,
I never thought about that. That's so interesting.
It's weird. You have to go back and look at them now and be like,
wow,
wait, is that crowd, are those real people or are those all put in there by compositors, But yeah, that was one of the really fun things that we got to do was make baseball crowds. So there are so many industries, you guys. I just want to emphasize this really, really clearly that movies and television is really fun, and that's where Ariba and I work. But I have many friends and colleagues who branched out and are using the skills that they've learned with the exact same things that we're talking about, but they're doing other things with it as well. I have friends who are architects, right? And they do environmental design and they do architecture. You know, people in the automotive industry design cars in the computer before they build them in real life. You know, aerospace. I have friends working on rovers that go to Mars. It's really, really cool. But I just want to make sure that you guys are aware that like there's so many other places to use the skills, and you would find, you know, happiness and fulfillment. Maybe you're a sneakerhead. I don't know. Maybe you just are like, I'm obsessed with Air Jordans and you want to go make shoes for Nike. There are people at Nike who use 3D software to make shoes, you know? And I think, you know, the one that, you know, Ariba and I are both really passionate about would be like gaming, right? I think we both play games in our free time, and we have friends that work at, you know, the video game studios around town. And you know, for us, video games is a really good escape and a really fun way to experience story. Were there any that you could think of, Ariba? I literally just went through a couple and I realized, oh my God, these all start with A. So I bet there's like
Yeah, well,
200
that
more.
just reminded me. I was just talking to Aman, who's on Max, and he told me that he used to do modeling for a motorcycle company. I don't know which one. I'm bad at those, but I thought that was so interesting. I was like, yeah, it makes sense. They need a modeler to like preview things, and it was for like I think on the app where you or the website that you just ordered a motorcycle and it like generates like the colors and stuff. So he helped set up that like the modeling for all that, and so it like it you know renders it right away so you can see it with different colors or like different handles or something like that. And I was like, yeah, that's definitely something that's needed, which I thought
Yeah,
was really cool. And then I also have another friend who she does modeling for concerts, like the concert setup on the stages. So like she does work for like Lady Gaga, like Miley Cyrus, and I'm just like, that's also something that's like you wouldn't think exists, but it does. Like it's there, and she does it. It's a job, and I'm like, that's pretty cool too. So you can definitely use the skills in any area. And as Michael said, gaming is a huge one. One of my first projects actually was Kenna the Bridge of Spirits. It's like it's an indie game, but it came out on PlayStation 5 and it's on PC, I believe. But that was one of my very first projects. And when I was working on it, they hadn't even had it, like, it wasn't picked up at PlayStation yet. And then I hear, I'm like, oh, it came out on PlayStation. That's cool. And it's a fun game. I recommend trying it out. And then another game I worked on was The Quarry, which is also kind of random because I'm just like, I didn't think I would be working on so many games working at like visual effects companies, but The Quarry is like a horror game that we worked on like the facial system. So it's all like through a game engine. So we were able to write a system that like uses machine learning and everything to generate like really nice facial poses that look realistic. Little uncanny valley, but it looks nice. I looked at it. I was like, okay, it's okay. It's not Polar Express uncanny valley, so I'm okay with
it's still
that.
scary. It's still scary though. I played it with my friends, and I'm not good with scary stuff like at all. I love Butterbean's Cafe and Dora the Explorer. Let's just put it that way. And Minions. I'm a huge fan of Minions. But yes, so you know, just to you know, I remember I think when I graduated school, it felt like, oh, Michael, you have to go into film or television, right? And it was like there's nothing else, and that's just not true. And I just want to make sure that everyone hears that out loud. That while I think we love film and television, it's where we both have spent most of our careers, if not all of it. There's a lot of other places, and I have really close friends that love what they do, and it has nothing to do with film or television in this sense. So just to put that on your guys' radars. Yes, this is a very long list, but this is just sort of the ideas of the types of jobs that you can get. And again, you're going to see ones that are very technical. You're going to see ones that are very artistic, and you're going to see ones that are very like clerical and like organizational, right? So all three of us have to work together to make to make content, to make media. And that all comes together with production, that decides the schedule. And then there's the artists, right? You see lots of artists, like crowd artists, technical artists, texture artists, the artists that build the world, right? And then the technical people that allow them to put it out into a video game or a movie, right? Like, you have to make software for things that don't exist, for example. And so, these are just a handful, right? I just want to be clear. This is like a handful. There's even more. But if you're ever curious, just sit through the credits of a movie and see what type of jobs there are. And I guarantee you some of those names are also on like LinkedIn or something. Don't bother them too much, but you can definitely maybe reach out and say, hey, I'm a student and I have an interest in becoming an editor. What's that like? What should I learn? Is there a school for that? And you can start to build your network and maybe even a little bit on top of getting that information. So again, it looks like a long list, but it's actually a very small list. There's many more.
Yeah, there's so many more positions than this. And I just wanted to chime in, and like there's so many positions I didn't think existed, because I kind of knew I wanted to go rigging and like technical route or write tools, but I got to see, I'm like, wow, there's so many other positions and so many tracks you can go. For example, one of my friends started out as a coordinator. I asked her, I'm like, what did you major in? And she's like, oh, I majored in bio. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, that has nothing to do with this. And that's fine, because a coordinator is about being organized. It's about scheduling. It's about like making sure you can keep track of everything. And it's definitely a job I respect, because I am not that person. And she is now a producer at Netflix. So it goes to show, like, you don't have to go to school for something specific to do it. And there's so many different type of positions. Another one would be like computer science, that could lead into a technical director role, could also lead into software development or software engineering for a company or a visual effects company. So there's like so many different things, and it doesn't have to directly relate to what you major in. It's more about where your passion takes you, where your interests are.
Yeah, and I think my favorite story too is that Steve Hillenburg, the creator of SpongeBob, he was a marine biologist, and then he came up with the idea of a sponge that was a fry cook that lived in a pineapple, and the rest is history, I think. But yeah, so you never know where people are going to come from and where they're going to bring their fun, exciting skill set with them into making cartoons or making media. Okay, so this is one of my favorite parts, is that we've spent a little bit of time talking about what animation is, but we haven't really gone into like maybe a little more higher level about like why make it, right? Like what's the purpose? And one of my favorite ones is like, well, you can make a spaceship on the computer a lot easier than you can build one and fly to another planet and film it. So it's like, the computer is going to help us there a lot. There are some digital environments that are just too pretty that you're going to make them beautiful, and it's about bringing your audience into the visuals, right? I think about things like Avatar, and I think about movies that are just stunning to look at and are really, really pretty, and those require a lot of artists to work together to make that. Movies, TVs, and games are those things that people use to feel and emote and feel emotion and stories. And it always comes back to the story, and it always comes back to good characters. So I always just want to emphasize that we make these because we want to express something. We want to tell stories that maybe haven't been heard before. And this is like my favorite thing, is that people will always remember how you make them feel. Sometimes they may forget what you say, but they'll remember the feeling that they get when they meet you. And that's something that we take very seriously at Nickelodeon. We care that our characters make you feel a certain way, because you're going to remember that feeling. And maybe, just maybe, you will come and work at our company and then create characters that inspire the next generation, right? I'm a Nickelodeon kid. I grew up watching Nickelodeon shows, and now I'm at Nickelodeon making Nickelodeon content. And I can't even begin to say how proud I am that I'm able to do that. So why do you do it, Ariba?
I didn't really get into this story about why I decided to pursue animation or CG in general, so I'll tell it now.
Okay.
I don't even know how old I was. Whenever Jurassic Park 2 came out, the one where they ended up in San Diego, I was watching it as like a small child in the movie theaters because I don't know, my mom didn't want to pay for babysitting. So she just took me with her and my sister, who's only a year older. But the thing was, we were so terrified throughout that entire movie of the dinosaurs and everything that we were hiding behind the seats and watching it through the cracks in the seats. And this was more back in the day, so no one really cared. But it was so interesting to me that it scared me so much. I thought those dinosaurs were real, and that's always been a very interesting part of that. Like, I just loved Jurassic Park as I got older, even though it scared me so much, and I wanted to learn, like, how did they get it to look so real? And that's always been kind of like a driving force as to what interested me about the industry. And that's when I got to learn about like the different things, like different jobs, how you put things together, and it's what led me to where I am now, and I'm really thankful. And as Michael said, I love watching SpongeBob growing up, so it's really nice to be at Nickelodeon making animations that hopefully kids can relate to today. But hopefully they're also watching SpongeBob because I love SpongeBob.
Yeah. Oh no, SpongeBob's the best. A fry cook, like, come on, that was genius. And okay, so then here's the other thing I wanted to like just put on your guys' radars and something that you can think about is I had a really amazing experience. The last 2 years I've been working on a Transformers show, and the supervising director is this guy who's been in the industry for like 30 or 40 years. His name's Glenn. And being so close to Glenn, I got to sort of like realize like, wow, this guy is one of the greatest artists that I'll ever meet. What does he do differently? Like, what is, what made him that way? And I could just sort of break that down a little bit. And I had to like ask myself, like, okay, what do the best artists do to become the best, right? And that was just like, that's my thesis. And I was like, okay, how do I explain that? Okay. And the things I noticed was that like he would have this passion that was beyond, a hobby or even beyond the job. And he would do his own art all the time. It didn't have anything to do with the show we were working on, but he would just draw. And he had these little toys. He's really obsessed with Peanuts, like Snoopy and Charlie Brown. And when you could feel that passion, you could really understand that, if you carry that passion with you for 30 or 40 years, you're going to inspire people just like I was inspired. And what I always loved about Glenn was that he always wanted to share what he knew, and what he'd learned from years of working on Batman and working at Warner Brothers and Teen Titans. And he wanted to share that. And I was like a sponge, pun intended, of a SpongeBob, but like I was just soaking in all that information, all that amazing skills. And it's made me a better artist and made me a better content creator as well. And this is the one that Ariba and I are both passionate about. We like to be with our community. We like to go to networking and do conferences and talk with you guys and talk with students of multiple different levels, all the way from high school all the way up to college and graduate level. This is what makes us want to do more of it, right? And yeah, I don't know, this is one of the things that just I like to share now, is that keep this in mind as you're growing, keep this in mind as you're learning. These are the things that we really like to impart as wisdom to the next generation.
I did have something to add to this.
Yeah.
It was also from another person called Glenn, but last name Keane. Glenn Keane was doing a talk at my college, and one of the things he said that really stuck with me all this time is, so I'll explain who Glenn Keane is. He is like, to me, the closest thing to Walt Disney. You know, he like designed Ariel, Beauty. He was like a storyboard artist in Beauty and the Beast, I think. He was just like the main person behind all these old golden age Disney films that we see. And I respect him so much. And he was talking about how he had imposter syndrome. Even later, like early on in his career, he'd always thought he wasn't good enough. He's like, why are they interested in me? He's like, I don't have any talent. I don't know why they're inviting me over for this interview. And like, he always thought these negative things about himself and always doubting himself. And it's crazy to me to think that someone so highly skilled, and now we look back on his history, I'm just like, he had imposter syndrome? I was like, how could someone so amazing have imposter syndrome? And it really made me think about it. And it's like, always believe in yourself, have confidence in yourself, because you are amazing and you will get to where you want to be. And it's just, I don't want people, because like I personally have dealt with imposter syndrome, and it's something that, don't let it stunt you from pursuing what you want. As long as you're actively pursuing things, it'll be fine. And if someone with like Glenn Keane can experience imposter syndrome and achieve what he has today, then I think we all can do great.
Awesome story, Ariba. That was great. Yeah, imposter syndrome. Who is she? I'm just kidding. She's like my best friend. I've ever since I've gotten there. And so, and this is something that this is so weird, you guys. I did another one of these talks even like earlier this week at my university in Denver. And one of the things that I noticed was a lot of the kids had talked about feeling burnt out and having a little bit of burnout in their arts and talking about content. And so I wanted to try and, touch on that a little bit, because I've been there too, but I didn't realize how common until I literally said, hey, like, give me a raise of hands if you felt burnt out. And like 60 or 70% of the hands went up. And I was like, oh, I need to address this. I need to talk about how to do this. And so, burnout is really common, but, there's a couple of different commonalities that create burnout. And those are things like, overworking, you're not taking stretch breaks. Like I loved when we did the intro that we did a stretch break. That was awesome. Because a lot of us are just kind of like hunched over always on our computer all day. But what you're going to be trying to look for are things like, rely on your network a little bit. Reach out to your friends and your family, and remember why you want to make stories, and remember why you want to make things that make people feel emotion, and take a breath and realize that like it's okay. You know what I mean? So there's a little bit of that accountability, but like in a positive way of like, rely on yourself and have that self-confidence, just like Ariba was talking about. That self-confidence equates to self-accountability. And kind of do whatever you can to keep that fire and that inspiration going. I don't, I can't always even decide when the inspiration kicks in. Like randomly, I'll just be watching a making of documentary or something, and then I have this like crazy explosion of I need to make 17 short films right now. And that is both exciting, but also a little bit daunting, because then it feels like overwhelming. So kind of take that inspiration, but then use it to be, organized, and then bring in that accountability from the first point to like help you create what you want to create. And this one is, really funny, but I like Navy SEALs use this expression. They say, embrace the things that suck, embrace the suck. And it means, try things that maybe you don't like. You don't know what you're going to learn about yourself when you do. And that is a really important aspect, especially when making art. I'm not the best drawer, but I love painting. But if I was better at drawing, I would even be better at painting. You know what I mean? So it's like, oh, I'm gonna make sure that I draw a little bit every day. because when that means when I paint, my paintings will be a little bit better. But the big point that I want to end on for this section is this takes time. You don't go to the gym and then expect to have a six-pack tomorrow, right? Unless if you're like me, I go to the gym and I want a six-pack tomorrow. But it's almost like investments, right? You do a little bit over time and a little bit over time, and then in 5, 10, 15 years, oh, suddenly you're really good at the thing, right? But you have to do a little bit over time. You can't, don't just go and say, okay, well, I need to work 10,000 hours and that's, for 8 hours a day and 200 days. It's like, don't think about it like that. Think about it like this takes time, and it's going to take time, and that's okay. Nobody is, there are prodigies out there, but even behind that veil of the prodigy is a lot of hard work. Like, sometimes you don't always see that hard work that's behind there. So yeah, that was just one of the things I wanted to talk about burnout.
Yeah, those are some really great points, and I don't have anything to add to that.
Oh, cool. Well then yeah, then that can be actually, that's the last slide I have. So we can start doing Q&A, because I see a couple really awesome
Yeah, we do
questions
have
in
some.
there.
We have some
Should,
questions, but
yeah.
we are kind of short on time.
Sorry, I
If
know
you
we
want,
love
we
to
can.
talk.
Maybe we can answer one. Do you want to pick one out? And do you mind if any of the participants reach out to you to ask you any questions via the link that you provided for them?
Always. Yeah. Please reach out. How about we do one question each? Does that sound okay, Ariba?
Yeah, that sounds perfect.
We'll do one question each, and then yeah, sorry guys, I know we always try and go quick, but then we get talking about
We'll try answering really quick. We'll just talk super fast.
Sure. Okay, yeah, take it away.
Oh wait, I haven't looked at the
Okay.
questions.
Do you have any advice for aspiring voice actors and writers who want to get into the animation industry with these respective roles in mind? This is from Sean.
Yeah, voice acting is a really, I just want to be clear, voice acting is a really niche part of the industry. And what I really love about Nickelodeon, and I'm going to speak about my show specifically, is that we did anonymous voice auditions. So there was no star power attached to the voice. And what that means is that the best voice fit for the best character, right? And I think that's a really good way to go about it, because obviously, like, people like Tom Kenny who do SpongeBob, he's incredible and he's super kind, but sometimes you want to give a break to someone new. And so the way to start getting into that is, kind of, usually you have to like find an agent, or a manager to represent you, and then they have to submit your auditions to the studios, and then the studio will have you audition for a part. So there's a very long process with becoming voice actors. I just want to be very clear. It's actually really tough. Writers is still pretty tough, but what I would encourage you to do is every studio, Nickelodeon, of course included, has things called like writers programs. I think Nickelodeon's is open now. And what we have you do is we have you write what's called a spec script, where you take one of our content, like let's say SpongeBob, and we have you write a SpongeBob episode, right? And so you write the screenplay, and then you write a second script that's like your own idea, your own story, and you submit those. And after you go through a round of interviews and reviews, and if you make it, they'll come in and they'll pair you with full-time staff writers, and you'll learn how to write that way. So I think for me, the writing is a little bit more accessible than the voice acting. But again, it's like, writing's tough. You have to, I've literally heard in writer rooms, they say, okay, make it funnier. And that's the note that you get on an episode. You have to just make it funnier. And so, have fun with that.
Thank you. One more question really quickly. What is an Unreal developer?
Yeah, I can answer that because I do some Unreal development as well. So Unreal developer is someone who is basically a programmer for Unreal specific tools. And so that could be anything really. For example, one thing I've been working on is an easy way to manage shots and sequences within Unreal for shows. And it's kind of like its own tool. So Unreal Developer can really do a range of things. I've seen Unreal developers create some really cool stuff, you know, figuring out how to get effects to work in Unreal since we use a different software for effects. And that was actually something we did on the March is we figured out how to get crowds to work efficiently in Unreal and have a fast turnaround time for that. And that involved several Unreal developers working with technical directors who are on the other, like working on other softwares. And yeah, they help solve things and make things more efficient for artists to work.
Thank you for sharing that. So thank you for sharing your thoughts, and I invite you to stay on to help close our group.
Cool. So everyone, we are coming towards the end of our group. Keisha, how will we close today's lesson?
Okay, so I just want you to quickly think of all the interesting things you learned and participated in this week, and especially during this webinar. Is there anything that you would like to explore and expand on? Go ahead, Brandon, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say I was really inspired by all the amazing slides that were shown today. And also earlier today, there was a lot of talk about credit score, which I need to start at some point.
I agree, definitely. I'm really inspired by the group that I had earlier this week with the role playing and seeing how I can incorporate that also into many of my other groups. That was a lot of fun to do. So thank you all for participating in this closing ritual.
Oops, sorry, I was muted. And thank you for coming to today's Industry Access event. Remember to stay connected to TAP by following our social media accounts posted in the chat. And have a great weekend, everyone.
Bye.
See everyone.